okay. It's all right. Just I almost dropped my coffee. It would have been real bad. Anyway, hi. I'm leaving all of that in. That can stay. It's all right. Today I'm learning about the Habsburgs because you know what? Why not? Let's learn about these inbred mofos. It's really all I know about them is that they were very inbred. So yeah, let's talk about why you shouldn't marry your cousins.
How inbred were the Habsburgs?
Habsburgs. What was I calling them? Suddenly my brain is like, I think I might have called them Hasbirds or something.
1. The Spanish line. Royals throughout history are notorious for inbreeding. I utter the phrase, married her cousin, disturbingly frequently. Even Queen Elizabeth II married her third cousin, Prince Philip. But
those aren't
the
so
European
bad. That third cousins is a little different than first cousins, though. Like, that's like... I don't think I know anybody personally who's married like a third cousin, but it's like, that's... You never met at the family picnic, you know?
royal family by far most notorious for inbreeding are the Hapsburgs. The royal house of Habsburg ruled Spain from 1506 to 1700 and held the Holy Roman Empire from 1452 until 1806. These two branches of the family volleyed brides back and forth like ping pong balls. Cousins married cousins and uncles married nieces, all in the name of keeping wealth and power in the family and keeping their blood blue.
She looks fine.
They were oblivious to all the havoc this incest was playing on their genetics. The tragic results were numerous family members with mental illness, intellectual disability, vulnerability to disease.
And that sucks too, because like you see these portraits or whatever, these official portraits, and it's like those artists were paid to make these people look good. So if they look like this in the official portrait, what did they really look like?
And a famously unusual countenance, which became known as the Habsburg jaw. And those were the lucky ones. The Habsburgs also endured a shocking number of miscarriages, stillbirths, and infant deaths. The inbreeding finally culminated in a king with so many illnesses he could barely walk or speak. He also couldn't produce an heir, and the Spanish Habsburg line died with him.
Sorry, Charles.
Just how inbred were the Habsburgs? Short answer, very. Long answer, well, let's get into it.
Long answer, 20 minutes.
Most of us inherit 23 chromosome pairs, half of each pair from each of our parents. On those chromosomes are the genes which code for everything from eye color to height to intelligence. If a child inherits a defective gene from one parent and a non-defective gene from another parent, they are less likely to have that genetic error affect their health. However, if the parents are blood relatives, they are more likely to carry the same genes for the same genetic defects, and their children are much more likely to be harmed by those defects. Mating between first cousins doubles the risk of infant death and physical and
I didn't realize
intellectual
that.
disability. The closer the relationship.
I knew that it was like bad for other stuff. I didn't realize it doubled the risk for infant death. That's crazy.
Of the parents, and the more generations inbreeding has occurred, the more problems compound to produce unhealthy children with multiple congenital defects. Through most of history, people had no idea of the genetic reasons why inbreeding caused
why someone's boobs might be on their neck. That feels like a genetic mutation, to have your boobs here. Making fun of medieval art. Always a good joy. Always a good time.
Health problems. But they noticed that it was happening. Researchers have found that early humans as far back as 34,000 years ago held taboos against incest and developed complex mating rituals to make sure they avoided it. farmers knew for millennia that crossbreeding animals and
bet.
plants could favor certain desirable traits, and that breeding animals too closely related could cause a host of problems.
You know, that does make
But
sense that the farmers
royals
would figure that
remained
out first.
oblivious,
Of course
and
they did.
many of these genetic defects
As well, because royals too always had the whole thought of like, well, we're better than you. Like our blood is actually better. Like they literally thought that. So it's like the farmers are out here like, y'all got to make real sure, right? We don't, because they would see it. They would see it much faster too, because generations of animals and plants die obviously faster than generations of humans. So like they would be able to see those results much quicker. But also it's like the royals, you know, this is why you shouldn't be super elitist, I guess. This is my elitist point. Don't be so elitist because you'll end up inbreeding.
can mean death before life has even begun. The famously unhealthy members of the Habsburg family were as nothing to the many, many babies who were lost to miscarriage, stillbirth, and infant mortality. 4 in 10 infants born to the Habsburgs died before their first birthday, and only 5 in 10 survived to the age of 10. Infant mortality was very high at the time, but for comparison, only about 2 in 10 children born in a Spanish village at the time would die before reaching adulthood.
And that's wild too, because like you'd think that the richer people would have like more access to better medicine and like, I mean, for what passed for medicine at the time, but like, dang.
In the early 1800s, Charles Darwin observed the dangers of inbreeding in his groundbreaking research on evolution. Despite knowing better, he chose to marry his own first cousin in 1839. 3 of their 10 children died young, and Darwin feared that his beloved offspring might have inherited weakness from inbreeding.
Maybe you shouldn't
In
have
the
married your first cousin.
mid-1800s, Austrian abbot Gregor Mendel conducted experiments with crossbreeding pea plants and established many of the rules of heredity, including the concept of recessive and dominant genes. One has to wonder what he thought about the rampant inbreeding in his own emperor's family.
He's gone, whatever he thought about it, he was going to keep that real quiet.
Mendel's groundbreaking work on genetics wasn't widely known until the early 1900s.
He had to keep
2
that
centuries
shit
too late
on lock.
to prevent the Habsburgs from inbreeding themselves into oblivion.
Look, again, he would have had to keep that shit quiet. Like he knows, but it's like you can't just go and tell people that. Like you'll get yourself beheaded.
Just how inbred were the Habsburgs? The family dates
every time
back
she
to
asks
11th
that.
century Switzerland. They gained power and wealth until the 15th century when Holy Roman Emperor
He looks
Sigismund
pissed.
died without a male heir, and Frederick Hapsburg was able to bribe and cajole the prince-electors into
Sounds right.
making him emperor. For the next 3.5 centuries, the empire would remain in the hands of the Habsburgs. Emperor Frederick III married Eleanor of Portugal, and his son, Emperor Maximilian I, married Mary, Duchess of Burgundy. Both marriages were not incestuous and would bring some of the last fresh genetic material to the family. The trouble started when Maximilian's son, Philip the Handsome, married Juana of Castile. She was the product of a marriage between second cousins, Ferdinand II of Aragon and Isabel I of Castile. The famous Catholic monarchs launched the Spanish Inquisition, Christopher Columbus's expedition to the New World, and an appallingly inbred dynasty. Following the early deaths of their only son, Juan, their eldest daughter, Isabel, and her infant son, Juana became the heir to both of her parents' crowns of Aragon and Castile. She is known to history as Juana the Mad. Historians have speculated that she suffered from a number of conditions, including depression, bipolar disorder, psychosis, and schizophrenia.
Oh my goodness.
The inbreeding in her family history likely played a part. But it also didn't help that as a teenager, her mother subjected her to torture because she dared question the Catholic Church.
Oh my God. You know what? That tracks considering, Inquisition, Spain, but like, yeah, that wouldn't help.
When Isabel died, Juana inherited Castile. Her father likely exaggerated her bouts of mental illness in order to keep his daughter and Castile under his control. Juana was desperately in love with her husband Philip, while he was habitually unfaithful. His philandering inflamed his wife's delicate mental condition.
That sounds about right, especially for that period of time. You always hear that in the story. Like the wife was devoted, husband was a philandering dickhead. It's like, yeah, you hear that, especially in the older family story, like the royal families of Europe. It's very common.
When she caught him with a lover, she stabbed the woman in the face.
Dang.
Philip died suddenly at the age of 28, and Juana, pregnant with their 6th child, refused to let anyone take his body away. She slept next to her husband's corpse every night, often kissing and embracing him.
Oh my God.
When she was finally persuaded to bury him, she insisted on a weeks-long journey to Granada to place him next to her mother. The queen demanded that the funeral party travel only at night, so that no women would see her dearly departed and be overwhelmed with desire for him.
Ew.
She also insisted that they rest only at monasteries and never at nunneries. Ferdinand had his daughter locked away, and after he died, passing Aragon on to her, her son Charles took control of both his mother's kingdoms and kept her locked up, rarely visiting. He wrote, "Make sure that no person speaks to Her Majesty, for no good could come of it." Juana's youngest daughter, Katrina, was her only companion for 18 years.
Oh my God.
But Charles stole her away in order to marry her off to King João III of Portugal. Lonelier than ever, Juana's mental and physical health deteriorated, and she died alone at the age of 75.
She lasted a long
Juana
time.
and
That's
Philip's
rough.
6 offspring went on to marry into royal families in France, Denmark, Hungary, and Portugal, bringing their unfortunate genetic inheritance with them. In 1519, Charles V inherited the Holy Roman Empire from his grandfather Maximilian I. Thus, the empire and Spain were joined in a personal union. In addition to suffering from epilepsy, Charles was noted for his pronounced chin. This condition, called mandibular prognathism, is when the lower jaw juts out, causing an extreme underbite. The teeth do not align correctly, often causing difficulty.
See, this one, he almost looks regal, you know? So this particular sculptor did a good job.
In eating and speaking. Former Tonight Show host Jay Leno also has this condition. Mandibular prognathism came to be known as the Habsburg jaw, as it appeared prominently in Habsburg men for generations. It is less pronounced, but still noticeable in many Habsburg women. Charles was unable to close his mouth. When visiting Spain, a man shouted out from the crowd, "Your Majesty, shut your mouth. The flies in this country are insolent." At 21, Charles was betrothed to his
and he didn't get himself killed for that little snide comment?
His first cousin, Princess Mary of England, the 6-year-old daughter of his aunt, Catherine of Aragon, and of King Henry VIII. But the engagement was called off, as Charles didn't want to wait a decade to start a family. Instead, he married another first cousin, Isabella of Portugal, whose mother Maria was a daughter of Juana and Philip. The union was the wish of their shared grandparents, who wanted to keep the various branches of the family close. And as Isabella's father, King Manuel I of Portugal, had the only navy capable of challenging the Spanish in exploration and colonization, it was in Charles's best interest to ally with him. Charles and Isabella fell very much in love. They had 7 children, though only 3 of them survived to adulthood. Charles was an intelligent and effective ruler of one of the largest empires the world has ever seen. When Isabella died,
still in that early phase of the incest, of the inbreeding,
in childbirth, he became morbidly depressed. He wore only black and surrounded himself with clocks and portraits of his late wife. He brought his own coffin with him wherever he traveled and staged a production of his own funeral.
Wow, he was a goth. So he was a goth boy.
After which he rose from his coffin and went to have lunch. Having lost interest in ruling, he abdicated shortly before his death at 58.
Oh, wow.
Spain went to his son, Philip II, but the Holy Roman Empire went to his younger brother, Ferdinand I. Thus, the Habsburg family split into two branches.
They look like different. Like,
First,
they do not look related,
follow
those
the
two.
line of the Spanish Hapsburgs.
Let's go!
King Philip II of Spain inherited the throne of Portugal as well through his mother. He was a strong leader during Spain's Golden Age.
He looks like Pete Davidson. Is who he looks like.
The Spanish conquered the Incan Empire, and the Philippines were colonized and named in his honor.
Oh,
Philip
well, for
married
him.
4
Okay.
times, and all of his wives were relatives. His first wife, Maria Manuela of Portugal, was his double first cousin, and they shared all 4 grandparents.
Oh my God.
Juana and Philip, and Manuel I of Portugal,
That's
and Maria of
too
Aragon.
many.
Maria died at 17 following the birth of their son, Carlos. He suffered multiple health problems and was mentally unstable and violent. His father was forced to imprison him, and he died in confinement at the age of 23.
Dang.
Philip's second wife was his first cousin once removed, Queen Mary I of
A little
England,
further apart.
who had long ago been betrothed to his father. She was desperate to conceive a child and keep the throne of England out of the hands of her Protestant sister, Elizabeth.
So yes. Okay, I know more about her from other sources, but let's go.
But after 2 humiliating psychosomatic pregnancies, she died of uterine cancer. Many years later, Philip sent the Spanish Armada to invade England and remove Elizabeth from the throne. But his ships were beaten back by the English.
Sorry.
Wife number 3 was third cousin, Elizabeth of Valois.
Yes.
The couple were married for 9 years and had 2 daughters before she too died in childbirth. Philip's 4th and final wife.
I feel like he's like Henry VIII had 6 wives and only one of them died in childbirth. 2 of them he killed, 2 of them he beheaded, and the other one lived, right? But it's just like, this guy has almost as bad of luck, but we don't talk about him. I mean, I say bad of luck. He had bad luck. They just kept dying on him, which, like, I would feel like that would feel cursed too. It's like suddenly you're a European princess and you're getting betrothed to the King of England or the King of Spain, and you're like, so you hate me then, family. So family, you want me to die. 'Cause everybody who gets betrothed to anybody over there dies. Like, ugh.
Wife was his niece and first cousin, Anna of Austria.
It's too much.
The couple had 5 children, though only 1 survived childhood.
Shit.
Anna died of heart failure at the age of 30 after giving birth to her 5th child.
Oh my God.
Philip II had a total of 11 children with his 4 wives, but only 2 of them outlived him.
Oh my
His
God.
son with Anna, Philip III, inherited the throne after his death. He was a far less effective ruler than his father,
He's got
and was
fancy
described
mustaches,
as
though.
a miserable monarch and a pallid, anonymous creature whose only virtue was his total absence of vice. He married his second cousin.
Boring as hell. He was super boring. But at least, boring is better than monstrous. It's like, I feel like you'd rather be known as someone who is kind of ineffective and dull as opposed to somebody like Henry VIII, who is known for being basically a tyrant. Like,
Margaret of Austria, and they had 5 children who remarkably all survived
Oh, good
to
for them.
adulthood. Eldest son,
that
Philip
second cousin
IV,
thing. I think it's that second cousin. It's helping them out a little bit.
inherited the throne at 16. At the age of 10, he had been wed to 13-year-old Elizabeth of France. This unusual union
really young
outside the
union.
Habsburg family sealed an alliance with her father, King Henri IV. Despite not being close relations, the couple were very unfortunate in reproduction. Of their
Well, they
10
started at
children,
10,
only
so-
2 survived infancy. Elizabeth died at the age of 41. Their only living son, Balthazar Charles, was betrothed to his first cousin, Mariana of Austria, but he died suddenly of smallpox at the age of 16.
Yeah, I was like, I'd never heard of a King Balthazar, so I figured he probably didn't live.
He
feel like I'd
succumbed
remember King
quickly to the
Balthazar.
disease, likely because of an inherited immune deficiency. Devastated by the loss of his son and without an heir to inherit the Spanish throne, the 44-year-old King Philip wed his son's fiancée, his 14-year-old niece, Mariana of Austria. Philip and Mariana were both fairly competent as king and consort.
Okay.
Philip had a good grasp of Latin and geography and could speak French, Portuguese, and Italian, though he was noted for only laughing 3 times. Mariana, too, succeeded in education.
Okay, so he was kind of joyless, but like he went through it. It's like, and honestly, I'd rather have someone who's only laughed a couple of times in their life. You know, they're not very fun, but like, you know when you actually got them, though. You know when you genuinely made that person laugh. They didn't fake it. Weird thing to write down about somebody, though.
All 8 of their grandparents were descendants of Juana the Mad and Philip I.
Oh my
After
God.
so many generations of inbreeding and a family tree that resembled a braided wreath, this couple shared far too much DNA.
Yeah.
After the birth of 2 daughters, only one of whom survived, the king was given a prophecy from an astronomer that his next child would be a living son. He ate only eggs out of superstition that the prediction would come true. And indeed, the queen did deliver a baby boy, who was baptized Philip Prospero, in the hopes that he would thrive.
I love
Mariana fell
gotta say, the prophecy effing worked, I guess. Good job, prophecy. Someone was telling the truth. The stars.
ill with childbed fever, but no one noticed as they were so overjoyed and relieved by the birth of an heir who would prevent war over the throne.
Fuck y'all women.
Mariana recovered, but her son did not prosper. He was often ill owing to his defective immune system. He also suffered from epilepsy. His parents tied a
That's a cute dog in that picture, though. That dog be cute right here. She a cute puppy. Puppy. I mean, Mariana lived, though. I thought this story was going to end with Mariana dying of this childbed fever because no one gave a fuck about her anymore because she'd done what she was supposed to do, which was shit out a baby boy. Anyway, sorry, I'm not bitter about it. I don't even know these people.
great many amulets and good luck charms around his tiny body. Philip Prospero died after a seizure, just shy of his 4th birthday.
Oh, that's so sad.
His parents were heartbroken and baffled as to why their children had been so afflicted.
Yeah.
The king wrote to a friend, "I see clearly that I have angered God and that these punishments are sent in retribution for my sins."
Stop marrying your cousins.
Philip and Mariana
and you're like underage girls. Like maybe God was pissed.
would suffer the death of one more son, Ferdinand, at the age of 10 months, before their 5th and only surviving son, Charles, was born. King Charles II of Spain
He already looks ready to go. He's like, well, what? He already looks like an old man.
is easily the most famously tragic result of inbreeding among the Hapsburgs. There were rumors that the baby's sexual organs made it unclear if he was male or female. The French ambassador requested to examine the prince, but he was not permitted to see him undressed.
Good.
He described the unfortunate...
Good God. Good job. Keep your hands off the babies, all right, French ambassador? What the hell? It's none of your business. Why would it be any of your business? Fuck off.
Newborn. The child is extremely weak. He has herpes-type rashes on both cheeks. The the head is covered in scabs, and a kind of channel or drainage that oozes underneath the right ear.
Ooh.
Baby Charles was fitted with a bonnet to cover up these conditions.
Dang, for sure, though.
By the age of 3, the fontanelles in his skull had not yet fused, and he could not stand upright.
What's a fontanelle? I don't know what that means. I'm going to look that up. Fontanelle in skull. What does that mean? I know I wrote sky. It's fine. Fontanelle is a soft spot, is an anatomical feature in an infant human skull, composing of membranous gaps between the cranial bones that make up the fetus of an infant, and then they allow for stretching and deformation of the neurocranium in birth and later. Okay, so he was soft-headed, basically. The fontanelles are what allows the baby to be able to go through a hole that's that big, and then to like get better. Okay, I just wanted to check and see what that was.
This was also the age at which he inherited the throne of Spain when his father died. Charles
right.
didn't learn to walk until the age of 4. Until 5, he was fed exclusively breast milk, produced by 14 wet nurses working on rotation.
Yeah,
The
dang.
king suffered measles, chickenpox, rubella, smallpox, and various dental and bronchial infections.
And none of them killed him? I think he was stronger than y'all gave him credit for then. Good God.
Throughout his childhood, he baffled his physicians by continuing to live.
Right? They'd be
His
like,
tongue
dang.
was so large
Was
and
he
his
not dead?
jaws so misaligned that he did not learn to speak until the age of 8. He could
Wow.
not chew his food, so often swallowed it whole and then vomited it back up. As he grew older, Charles was beset with epileptic seizures. His many physical maladies were compounded by his lagging intellectual development. Tutors struggled to teach the king to read and write, and he was prone to throwing tantrums throughout his life.
I mean, like, that does kind of track, though, because, like, especially if you know that you should be getting it. Like, I mean, I definitely had those moments, like, trying to, like, figure out certain, like, math things as a kid, like, where, it's like, I know I should be getting it. Like, why am I not getting it? And then I would, like, flip out. I would like, the number of times sobbing at the kitchen table, you know? Like, I did chuck stuff across the room a few times, too, I'm sure. Like, a binder or something, a pencil, maybe. Like, I did get really, really frustrated. Try not to break anything, obviously, because I wasn't fully destructive. But I'm like, but I did occasionally get mad enough that I would, you know, I just want to chuck whatever it was across the room, and I would, because it was so frustrating. It's frustrating to know you're not getting something that you know you should be able to get. I feel bad for him. I didn't think I was going to end this video feeling bad for this kid, but I never really thought about him, I guess, in general.
Medical historians have speculated a few possible diagnoses for Charles's many maladies. These include the endocrine disease acromegaly, an excess of growth hormone which causes enlarged hands, feet, forehead, jaw, and nose, joint pain, thick skin, deepening of the voice, headaches, and problems with vision. Distal renal tubular acidosis, where the kidneys fail to secrete vital acids, resulting in kidney failure and rickets, or soft bones causing bow legs, stunted growth,
That's rough.
bone pain, a large forehead, curved spine, frequent fractures, and muscle spasms. Hydrocephalus, an accumulation of cerebrospinal fluid in the brain, causing an enlarged head, headaches, double vision, poor balance,
There's that
incontinence, personality changes, mental impairment, and seizures.
People thought my brother had that as a kid, but it turned out he just had a big ol' head. He was fine. They were worried about it for a minute, though, because his head was so big. It was so big. If he's watching this, hey, bro, sorry I'm telling everybody your secrets. He grew into his head, but I don't think he's watching this. I don't think no one watches these, but I'm going to just keep spilling all your secrets. Forever and for always.
Fragile
Not a
X
secret.
syndrome, a genetic
Fragile X?
defect on the X chromosome, which affects males as they do not have a second X to compensate for the
He's a cutie, this
defect.
kid. Why
Symptoms
are we showing-
include intellectual disability,
Why are we
an
showing this
average
cutie?
IQ of under 55, a long and narrow face, large ears, hyperactivity, and seizures. And Klinefelter syndrome,
Klinefelter.
where a male has an additional copy of the X chromosome, resulting in infertility and small, poorly functioning testicles.
I've heard of that
Charles's
one.
many illnesses certainly came down to the generations of inbreeding in his family and the compounded recessive genes he inherited. Researchers at the University of Santiago de Compostela confirm this. They calculated what is called the inbreeding coefficient for 16 generations of Hapsburgs. The inbreeding coefficient indicates the likelihood that an individual will receive two identical genes at a given position on the chromosome because of the relatedness of their parents. The researchers found inbreeding coefficients increased considerably down the generations of Habsburgs. Philip I, back in 1506, had a coefficient of 0.025, higher than the average person.
He looks like he's doing that, like, suspicious look. This is like a funny picture to choose for him. He just looks like he's giving Juana, like, a bit of a side eye.
On the street.
And she looks just so done. She's like, I hate everything. This sucks. Which makes sense, because sounds like her life was awful.
But not by much. 155 years and 6 generations later, the coefficient increased 10 times to 0.254 for Charles II. That is almost as high as for the offspring of a mating between a parent and child or a brother and sister.
Ugh.
But Charles's courtiers and his terrified mother were oblivious to this. They believed that the king, who became known as El Hechizado, or the Hexed, had been bewitched or possessed by demons. Charles was subjected to a number of potions, procedures, and even exorcisms. Priests and clerics came from far and wide to pray over the afflicted monarch. One such cleric claimed to have spoken to a goblin who lurked within the palace walls. The boggart bragged that he had forced the king to drink the brain of a dead man dissolved in a chocolate bowl. Holy relics, the bones belonging to Saint Isidore and Saint Iago, were brought to the king's bedside.
What a dickhead. That one priest or whoever who said, I talked to the blah blah. Ugh.
In the hopes that proximity to the divine might cure him. Even the bones of his own dead father were removed from his crypt and placed in the king's bedroom. But alas, none of these treatments were able to grant the king relief.
Imagine that, being in a rooms with like full of dead people doesn't help your physical or mental health. Couldn't have picked, oh my God, wow.
Or vitality. Whatever his mental and physical condition, Charles was still the king by divine right, and the Spanish Habsburg monarchy's only hope for the future. At 18, he was wed to the beautiful Marie-Louise d'Orléans. He fell desperately in love with her, while she could barely stand to look at him. She confided to a friend as to what went on in the bedroom with her infirmed husband. That she was really not a virgin any longer, but that as far as she could figure things, she believed she would never have a child. Charles was most likely impotent, but all the pressure of reproduction was placed squarely on the woman. When Marie-Louise failed to produce an heir, the court doctors put her on a regime of fertility potions.
Of course.
The queen drowned her sorrows in sweets, so much so that the palace kitchens used up 32 pounds of sugar per day for her fancies.
What?
Her overindulgence combined with the fertility potions caused Marie-Louise to die of appendicitis at 26.
Appendicitis? I was like, not diabetes? Like, I mean, what was in those potions that burst her appendix? What were they giving her? Mercury, probably. I think everything was mercury and arsenic in those days.
The need for an heir was getting desperate, so another royal bride was called for. This time, it was Maria Anna of Nuremberg, one
She's like, I'm gonna dress up like you. we gotta cosplay as each other.
of 12 children of a family renowned for their fertility. The new queen was under enormous pressure to bear a child. She claimed to be pregnant on a number of occasions.
Of course she did.
And when it became clear that she was not, she pressured her husband to undergo even more exorcisms, arguing that she could only bear him a child when his demons had been expelled.
You know what? That's actually kind of clever. Like, that's actually, because it's all on her, right? So she's like, well, actually, we already know that you've got demons in you, though. So it's that definitely the demon's faults. So let's because that takes the pressure off of him. It's not his fault. It's something else that happened. But it's also not her fault. Cause she's like, you're my guy. You've got a sperm, a singular one. I don't know.
King Charles II's many genetic illnesses finally caught up with him, and he died in 1700 at the age of 38.
Dang.
The doctor who performed his autopsy wrote that his body did not contain a single drop of blood. His heart was the size of a peppercorn.
Incorrect.
His lungs corroded, his intestines rotten and gangrenous.
I mean, some of that sounds probable, at least maybe, but he definitely 100% had blood in his body.
He had a single
Sounds like a
testicle, black as coal, and his head was full of water.
I mean, it sounds like this doctor was a hack, honestly.
Charles was the last of the male line of the Spanish Hapsburgs. His throne should have gone to the heir of his eldest sister, Maria Theresa, who had married King Louis XIV of France and died in 1683. Not wishing to allow Spain to fall out of the hands of the Habsburgs, Charles had written a will handing his throne to his Austrian cousin, Charles.
Oh.
But France was unhappy with this arrangement.
Of course they
and
were.
they and the Austrian Habsburgs went to war. The War of Spanish Succession lasted for 13 years and cost the lives of over 1 million people.
Shit.
In the end, France won, and Maria Theresa's 16-year-old grandson became King Philip V, establishing the Bourbon dynasty's rule over Spain. The Bourbons remain on the throne today.
Dang.
Inbreeding,
Hopefully less inbred.
the very thing the Habsburgs had done to try and hold on to power, was ultimately what lost them the Spanish throne.
There's a lot of, I've been watching the Apothecary Diaries with Jessica over on the Chicanime channel, and there's a lot of discussion about that, about diluting the blood and bringing in new blood to make sure that the emperor remains the emperor, But he was doing that in that show by having a lot of concubines and just sleeping with a lot of different ladies and doing his best to have a lot of different babies. Well, that's the idea. Anyway, it's unclear a little bit how many people he actually bones. There's only 2 babies right now, but anyway.
In the next episode, we'll rewind and take a look at the other tangled branch in the family tree, the Austrian Habsburgs.
That one's a
Their
little longer.
desperation for male heirs led to some strange and dangerous fertility treatments. And while Charles II may be the most famous inbred Habsburg, he certainly wasn't the only seriously ill and incompetent ruler placed on the throne by genetic accident. Don't want to wait to see the next episode? Patrons get exclusive early access to almost all of my multi-part series on Patreon early. If you would like to become a patron and help me make more fascinating history videos, check out the link in the description. Thank you for watching.
Thank you for making the video. That was really cool. I guess I never really thought too much about Charles. I feel kind of bad for him. I wasn't expecting to. I was just sucks. But really the only thing I ever knew about him was that he was kind of messed up. I didn't realize how many chronic chronic illnesses and stuff that he had, though. I was just mostly imagining him from like just the jaw thing was really the only thing. But yeah, I didn't really ever think about feeling bad for him, but now I kind of feel really bad for him, and I feel bad about making fun of his face. I mean, I knew it wasn't his fault, but oh well. I mean, he's dead. Hopefully, he's somewhere where he can relax a little bit now. Damn, I'm glad I wasn't born in that time. I would have been sent to a nunnery at the best. I would have been sent to a nunnery for not being able to see. But oh well. Glad I was born in not then. Thanks for watching. If you want to see the next one, go ahead, let me know. I'm probably going to watch it anyway. Bye.